Hey everyone, before to start this presentation, I would like to thank the organizing committee for giving us the opportunity to participate in the 31st edition of the International Congress of Apollonia University. This presentation is entitled Combined Singular Value Decomposition and Linear Regression Methods in Quantitative Structure Activity Relationship Modeling, a case study for predicting HIV-1 and hepatitis C virus biological activities. This presentation have this outline. I will start with an introduction, then I will give you a brief overview about some quantitative structure activity relationship models, including the multiple linear regression model and the combined SVD Mlr model. Then we will present the result and discussion, which perhaps the biggest part that contains the results concerning the XR models development and the XR models validation, and finally the applicability domain evaluation of these models. And we will conclude with a conclusion. It is well known that the development of new drugs is a long and expensive process, starting from identifying disease, which by isolating protein involved in this disease that took almost between 2 to 5 years, passing through finding a drug, an effective drug against this disease, and then the preclinical testing, and of course the human clinical trials that took almost between 2 to 10 years, and the last part, which is the approval of this drug. In our laboratory, we are focusing on drug discovery by using molecular modeling techniques and virtual screening, and also ligand-based drug design and structure-based drug design. And in this work, we will talk about some quantitative structure activity relationships. The philosophy of quantitative structure activity relationship is to correlate the activity or the property with the physicochemical properties of certain organic compound in order to quantify or either to classify them by using different machine learning techniques. And these techniques, usually we have the multiple linear regression, the artificial neural network, the support vector machine, and there are also some combined methods such as genetic algorithm, multiple linear regression, particle swarm optimization, support vector machine methods. And here we will try to use the singular value decomposition methods combined with the multiple linear regression method. As you know, the Mlr model is given by this equation, where the activity data, the endpoint value or the experimental values, are estimated by the matrix of calculated descriptor, which are the physicochemical properties, by trying to find the beta values, which are the weights of each physicochemical properties, which also called descriptors, and by estimating the residual, which are the errors. How to solve usually this equation? This equation is usually solved by calculating, by estimating the beta values, and the estimation of the beta values would be the best to separate these terms from the random compounds, which are the errors, the residuals. The problem is that to find the beta values, such as the matrix of the descriptors types, the beta values is close to the experimental activities, and here the hot matrix is calculated by this equation, and the differences between the actual response and the predicted responses is denoted by the residuals. Usually, if the linear model is not good in terms of performance and doesn't validate the basic matrix proposed by Goldreich and Tropsha, which are the determination coefficient of the test set, and also another determination coefficient which is called Q2 of the internal validations, the linear regression model is rejected. And the aim of this study is to develop a robust linear model based on improving the predictive ability of a simple linear model by combining the multiple linear regression with the singular value decomposition methodology. How can we improve the determination coefficient and the performance parameters using this method? The SVD topology has been established in 1870s for complex square matrices, and also it was used in rectangular matrices by Eckart and Young. So, after the application of the singular value decomposition on the multiple linear regression models, we obtain a new equation with a new term of the errors. And the resolution of this new equation give us new parameters, and the calculation of these new parameters, which are the absolute values of these new vectors types the activities, will improve the performance of the. Here are the software that we have used in this in the development of this method is a free software, which is the R software, and of course it is known that the main session of establishing quantitative structure activity relationship models passes through three different sessions, which are the data pre-processing, the model construction, and the model. In this work, we have used two different datasets, and the first one contains a set of 115 HCV derivatives, and the common structure of this compound is illustrated in figure 1. The second dataset used in this work contains a set of 128 HIV attachment inhibitor, and the common structure of this series is pictured in figure 2. The biological activities in both datasets were presented by the EC50 values, which is the half maximum effective concentration that refers to the concentration required to reduce the 50% of the inhibitory activities. And all the data were converted to their negative logarithms in order to make the values in a normal range. The descriptors, or the so-called physicochemical properties of all these compounds, were calculated using the Dragon 7 software, and we have calculated more than 7,000 physicochemical properties, and the stepwise multiple linear regression method was used to reduce the number of these descriptors in order to avoid the overfitting of the model equation. And finally, 5 molecular properties for each data were selected for the establishment of the model. During the XR model development, we have used 70% of compounds for the training set for establishing the model, and the remaining 30% of the compounds were used for the validation set, for the test set. Here are the results of the Mlr models concerning the HCV data, where the obtained determination coefficient, which is the R square, was lower, and the MSE errors was higher. And it has been shown that the Mlr methods that predicts the activity were far from the experimental values. Similarly, for the HIV data, it has been shown that the values of the residual was higher, and the determination coefficient was lower, and the predicted values were far from the experimental values, and this is shown in the left picture. After using the SVD, the singular value decomposition method on the Mlr method, it has been shown that the residual values was minimized, and also the predicted values versus the experimental values gives a determination coefficient, a higher values of the determination coefficient. For the SVD Mlr model on the HIV data, it gives the same results where the residual values were reduced. And this is shown in these two tables. For the first table, it shows the statistical parameters of different constructed models concerning the HCV dataset, where the value of the determination coefficient for the SVD Mlr model shown are higher, and also the mean square error were reduced. And also for the test set, we obtained a determination coefficient of almost 70% with reduced errors. And similarly for the HIV dataset, the SVD Mlr shows that it has almost good predictive ability for these two datasets. To validate the result, we have calculated the mean absolute error and also the CCC parameter, which is the concordance correlation coefficient for these two datasets, and the value of the CCC was higher than 95% for the two datasets. Finally, for these two data, these two graphs show the William plot, which is developed for the two models, and it has been shown that almost all the compounds are in the space of the applicability domain of these two datasets, and also only 4 compounds were outside the applicability domain for the HIV data shown in the graph in the left. And for the HCV data, it has been shown that only compound number 4 and 2 compounds that are outside the applicability domain evaluation. Finally, to conclude, it has been shown that the SVD Mlr method is robust, stable, and predictive with satisfactory performance. And also, this model can be used to predict the activity or the property of unknown chemicals for these two datasets. And this method could be, of course, used to establish a new quantitative structure, activity, or property relationship of any other data with the most relevant selected descriptor. And thank you for your attention.